we will have an exciting session for you. We're going to talk about some of the business value drivers we have with regards to generative AI and marketing, not just for content creation, but true business metrics, as well as some really good demos that Donna, my teammate, is going to be able to walk us through. And we also have a very special customer today with us, Jess from Mars, who's going to be able to talk about some of those value drivers. Now, let's get stuck in. So, our team, as you can see, but let's move on. Now, from a business perspective, I would like a quick show of hands. How many of you are using generative AI today? Right? It's okay if it's for personal and not for business. And then now I'm going to ask for another show of hands. How many of you were using AI before last year? I like this crowd, very, very honest, right? Machine learning has been around for a long time. AI has been around since the 50s, but not many people know about that. But any of us who use cash points or ATMs have interacted with machine learning in such a way that it faded into the background, so we didn't even think about it. Many of us use things like Google Maps. A lot of that is machine learning and AI. And so the thing that I like to say when I'm meeting with a lot of executives over the last year, I've met over 700 clients. And what we say is, if you're not using automation and you're not using analytics, you're definitely not ready for AI. But you can get started today. And how? So for example, we as consumers are now using all of these AI tools, which means we are also being business decision makers, and we have to decide, how do we retain talent? How do we upskill talent? But at the same time, build products and solutions that are using AI to keep us engaged, right? How do we do that? And so we have seen that customers are willing to pay a premium for really personalized experiences, right? Think of all the luxury brands out there. It's not just their craftsmanship, but it is how they might know what you might be interested in next. Not necessarily because you're going to buy the same thing over and over again, but how can they capture your imagination with the new thing, a new color? Right, I have a gentleman in front of me here wearing a very nice, please stand up, Luke, you know, a color that you wouldn't normally see at a tech conference, so thank you very much, right? And so that's exactly what luxury brands are going for, trying to get you to be a little bit bold in trying something different. With all of the social media campaigns, multi-channels, how you can actually attract and keep audiences is really key. So how do you actually decide what's the best way to do this? How do you measure the effectiveness of your campaigns so that you can actually go, okay, I need to do the next one, and the next one, and the next one? And how can you use AI to help you make those decisions? So it's a multiplier. You can use AI to really increase not just your own efficiencies, but also your creative teams, your business teams, your product teams, even your suppliers, for whatever it is that you're trying to get out into the market. That's the key, right? This isn't just fluff. You can use this today and start to see measurable differences. So in the case of marketing, especially if you're already also a Google Ads customer, we've worked across that team with that product area on the cloud side to ensure that if you're using things like Performance Max, you can actually see from the metrics and how those are performing, so that then on the tech side, you can create the platform to generate the next campaign, send out the next email, or create a whole new campaign altogether for a different set of time. And then, of course, the personalization, right? How much more quickly can you create media that's actually relevant, that someone would want, so that you can get to that conversion? And then, of course, I am really good at drawing technical diagrams. I'm terrible at drawing other diagrams. But now I can actually convey something in a creative way that my more creative friends can actually draw, and I can actually share those ideas. So we can actually use the technology to also bridge some of our own different ways of communicating and articulating some of our ideas to get to the next phase. Here's an example of what we did together with Estee Lauder. Now, my team, even though we're in engineering, we work with clients 80 to 90% of the time. We believe, as you saw in Thomas's keynote earlier, in that kind of collaboration, so that the technology is not just there as a widget, but it can actually drive to the next step. In this instance, because of this conversational kind of way to be able to interact with something like cosmetics and understanding, I have a different skin condition, I come from a different part of the world, how do I actually use this? How can someone who's at Estee advise me on the right product for my skin? Something like this actually bridged all of those different roles and functions to provide that. And so it uncovered new consumer insights for Estee on how they were actually starting to interact with all of the different brands inside of Estee, not just the key brand. And with Carrefour, they were able to use this to also create customizations just with the prompt, which led to a reduction in cost by 30% for them to be able to articulate the different products, the different SKUs, and also attract new suppliers into their ecosystem. And then, of course, how do you actually use generative AI to do scalable activations, right? For those, how many of you here are from the advertising industry, right? Ad agencies, etc. Activations are always so personalized and so difficult because it's really about how someone feels when they experience the brand that you're putting them out there that leads them to that next step. And whatever that next step is, whether you want them to engage further or whether you want them to come see a movie, come and buy the product. So those things are key. So how do you actually do that? With Benetton, we were able to actually use the technologies that we had to help them go from lacking insights to having more insights and creating a 6x conversion. Now, I knew about Benetton when I was a kid, so for me, this was near and dear to me because I could actually see where this brand is going now. Now, I have a teenager, and she's now interacting with the brand as well. So we could actually see that these were things that were working. Because when you have to sit there and actually put yourself in the consumer's side of how they're going to interact with these brands, you can see where the humanness needs to go into the AI to really make it work. So it's not just about the technology. It's definitely about the experience and how you can actually drive that to the next step. We also have a roadmap for CMOs. By the way, this roadmap is for everyone. It's not just for CMOs. You need a really good data strategy as you're starting to embark on this AI journey. And with all of the customer meetings we've had, we always had people asking, how do I get started? What if I have so many data silos and I don't have it all in one place? Do I have to rationalize all of my data before I can get going? And our answer was no. There were 3 things that we wanted people to think about. Was think of AI for growth, think of AI for efficiencies, and think of AI for the future. If you at least have bucketized some of the use cases into those 3, one might match all 3, one might barely match just one use case for efficiencies, you at least can start to go, what data do I need if this is the experience I'm designing for? So don't be crippled by not having everything perfect. Just get started. Because if you at least have an idea of what that experience is supposed to be, you can then start to fill in any of the gaps that you might have. And this roadmap can help you get there. And it has all of the different business drivers. In this case here, you can see there's measurements and insights, there's the media and personalization, and then, of course, creative and content. The core thing here is that bottom layer. In order for you to drive this kind of readiness, you need to make sure you're tying it back to ROI, tying it back to responsibility and governance, especially around customer data, and then, of course, the right executive partnerships in your organization to drive those things through. And we also take responsible AI really, really seriously. And so a lot of the things that we do with customers centers around the user journey, the different personas in that journey. And so in this case, you could see you might have a developer, you have an end customer, you might have a media buyer. So think about all of the different personas as you start to transform your businesses to the next step. And without further ado, I would like to invite my colleague, Donna, to talk to us about the technology.
Thank you, Caroline. Hi, everyone. My name is Donna. I lead Technical Solutions Management in Applied AI Engineering And I'll be walking through how you can design and build a marketing application on Google Cloud. So today I'll go over 3 things. The first is the user interface, which is how a marketer would interact with the application. And it demonstrates how generative AI can help take away mundane tasks of creating different ad formats and various different copies. It shows how they can launch campaigns faster, as Caroline just mentioned, that Carrefour did. It also shows how marketers can reach a new level of personalization that wasn't possible before. And then I'll show how developers can design and get started really quickly by building a marketing application on Google Cloud with our code samples that save 10 weeks of development time. And lastly, I'll go over the partner offerings and services that we have that can extend, customize, and build upon this solution. So let's start with the user journey of a marketer and the pain points that we've seen in working with several different customers. So we'll start first with a marketing team, and there's an analyst, a content creator, and a campaign manager. So an analyst is looking to get insights from various different data sources, struggles with these siloed data sources, and needs insights to understand the marketing campaigns, identify different audiences, spot trends, or understand consumer insights. Then a content creator looks to create content across all the different marketing channels and doesn't like the manual repetitive tasks. And then a campaign manager will take that content and activate it across the marketing channels, optimizes those campaigns as well, but may struggle to stay up to date with all the different product launches. And so you can see here, generative AI can help, as indicated by the red bullets, on many of these pain points that marketers face today. And the application that can help support that is powered mainly by Looker, which is our business intelligence platform, BigQuery, which is our unified data platform, Vertex AI, which is our generative AI platform, and then lastly, I'll use a pointer here, Workspace, which is our productivity suite. And they all come together in a front end that was built in Angular, which I will now demonstrate to you. So first, I'll show an analyst who's looking to get insights on consumers and audiences, and in this case, this is powered by using Vertex Search. So you can, for example, search for fashion trends in 2024. This is indexing content from the Think with Google site, but it could be internal consumer reports as well. And as you can see the results, they're indexed for relevance and summarization, with citations at the top so you understand where the source is from. And then an analyst may want to explore their audiences, and so they go to their marketing analytics dashboards, where you can see a view of campaign performance, product performance, various predictive models like propensity to purchase or customer lifetime value. And these were built in Looker and with BigQuery machine learning, the predictive models. So you can see the lifetime value by geography. An analyst might want to double click into that so they can preview the tables within BigQuery. And then in natural language, ask a question. So for example, what are the customer emails ordered by sum of transactions in New York? And now you can see that the large language model is actually generating the code, executing it, and then returning a result. And you can see the result here, as well as the resulting table. But if we double click into this a little bit, you'll see that this is a non-trivial SQL statement that's actually being created. So first of all, you can see the prompt structure at the top with the role that's defined. Then the metadata is retrieved from Dataplex, which is our system for metadata tracking, as well as BigQuery's information schema. And then we provide a few examples for few-shot learning. So there are examples on, for example, how to do joins, use table names, where, order, and so on. And these are best practices actually taken from the SQL POM paper from DeepMind and Google Cloud, and specifically the verbose prompt design if you're interested in learning more. And so then we'll save the resulting audience. So this actually generated an audience for a marketer to use to the campaign folder that the content creator can then see. So you can see how quickly, using generative AI, analysts are able to retrieve insights. All right, so next we'll show how a content creator can create personalized content at scale. And in this case, I'll demonstrate email copy, but it could be across any different channels. So for example, we have website posts, social media, it could be performance max, or other marketing channels. So you see at the top, actually, the sample insights from the previous analyst have been populated. And then you would typically probably use your own product images to maintain product truth, but we show here the generation capabilities. So you can provide your own prompt to generate an image. In this case, we'll generate an image of men's leather shoes for a new leather shoes campaign. You can choose the aspect ratio, content type, color, tone, lighting, composition, so you can very easily generate in all the different formats across the different channels as well. And so here, using Gemini, we'll generate the text for the email copy, and using Imagine, we'll generate the images for the email copy. And you can see here, based off of those insights, we've generated that, and they've been watermarked, the images, by SynthID, which is DeepMind's technology to show that this has actually been generated by generative AI. It's been watermarked. But most customers won't want to do this one by one, and instead do it in bulk. And so for demonstration purposes, we'll do 10, but you can do much more than just 10 emails. So we'll bulk generate 10 different email copies, which you can see here. And you can see that it's personalized based off of the data, including the language translation, which, if you recall at the top, was actually taken from preferred language. But you could personalize according to data and many different attributes, right? It could be by location, or it could be by product, for example. And so we'll then save these as well to the campaign folder. And then a campaign builder is actually very easily able to see all of the content that was generated across all the different channels that they can review for brand safety purposes. They can edit before you activate it into the various marketing channels, or you can export it into Workspace for further collaboration and editing. And then the third demonstration, so Campaign Manager can use, first of all, explore in Looker the same view that the analyst had, so they have a consistent view of their analytics, see how the campaigns are performing, compare campaign performance, see how their conversions are. And then to optimize a campaign, they may choose to talk to the marketing assistant chatbot. And for example, they could ask, what are the best practices for Performance Max, which is an AI-powered campaign from Google Ads. You can see here it returns the result as well as the various sources. The next could be, how do I optimize my reach on Instagram? And again, it shares some helpful links to click through, which you can click on for further reading. And then if we go back, so there's one more example. You could ask for what are the tips for email campaigns. And again, we get a summarization as well as a source. In this case, this is public data, but you could choose your own internal knowledge base. And that way, a campaign manager can very easily optimize their campaigns and find best practices quickly in a very natural and conversational way. And so this pattern that I showed of having analytics or content generation, as well as conversationally having an assistant that's actually supporting a marketer, that could also be applied to sales, for example, or customer service. So now that we've seen the experience for a marketer, I'll walk you through at a high level how you can build this on Google Cloud. So in the beginning, we saw the consumer report search. This was powered by Vertex AI Search, which enables you to very easily build a search or RAG application that's powered by large language models. Then, if you can see here, so we have quite an interesting pattern for trend spotting, where we use LangChain. So for those of you who may not know LangChain, it's an open source framework for building applications with large language models. And so we use LangChain agents with Vertex PaLM text models and custom tools. In this case, the custom tools were Google Trends and GDelt for the news articles. and they're chained together to execute in a logical way. So we built an agent that can help discover the most popular search terms and then summarize news-related articles to those terms. So for additional insights, you can export data from the various different marketing platforms, so Google Analytics, Google Ads, Google Marketing Platform, or partners like Growth Loop, customer data platforms, or other channels, for example, like CRM, into BigQuery, where you can run analytics, queries, as well as create different predictive models, like you saw earlier, propensity to purchase, customer lifetime value. And we have deployable code samples which help you get started really quickly with the data pipelines, the data model, the machine learning models, as well as the dashboards called Marketing Analytics Jumpstart that you can also find in the GitHub repository. And then as you do that, you can implement your own data governance policies and share it in a privacy-preserving environment. And as we showed earlier, to get further insights, we also leverage PaLM for code generation, which was the natural language to SQL example, where PaLM generates the code, executes the code, as well as returns a result. So based off of those audience insights, you can then create personalized marketing content across all channels. So in this case, we used Imagine for image generation, Gemini for text generation, but we really offer with Vertex a platform of models. So there's over 100 models, first party, third party, open source that you can choose from. And you can change them to the best of your use case. And then we use the Translate API, as you saw earlier, that you can use to localize content, so to translate into the preferred language for localization purposes. And then all of that content can be activated back into the marketing channels. So what's not really shown on this slide, but what I did want to highlight is that organizations can protect these processes by using Google Cloud security and data residency controls. You can also customize the foundation models while keeping your data private with an adapter layer. And then both BigQuery and Vertex AI have logging and monitoring, so you can understand data usage, resource consumption over time, identify any potential problems, and then make performance adjustments as needed. So if I've piqued your interest, with our code samples on GitHub, and if you're interested, you can scan the QR code here, you can get started in just a week, and this will save you 10 weeks of development time. So the way that it's built is that the front end that I showed you earlier and the back end are actually separated. So you can take it in its entirety, but you could also take just the back end and embed it within your own internal marketing application. We recognize that organizations have different workflows, right? So we showed a sample user journey, but we've seen that organizations may want to adapt, for example, a particular use case and not the entire end-to-end workflow. And so we built it with modularity, so you can take the use cases that are most interesting for you, but we did it end-to-end because we've seen the biggest step change, both in working with customers and internally when you reimagine the entire workflow. And so generative AI for marketing is really one of the main use cases that we've seen customers get started with. It's low risk. As you can see, there's several customers that have seen business benefit from it. Last year, there was a study done by BCG where they interviewed CMOs, and 70% indicated that they're already using generative AI for marketing, and 91% saw gains in efficiency. And so as we worked with several different customers, there were some questions that came up frequently that I wanted to share with you ahead of your journey. So the first was, can you integrate with other platforms? So for example, I'm using Office 365, Tableau, or other channels like Facebook, and the answer is yes. So you can use the code from GitHub and integrate it with other workflows and platforms. The next was, can you select different models, and can you adapt them for brand voice and style? And the answer is yes. So currently, it defaults to PaLM 2, Imagine, and Gemini, but you can redeploy it, change the models, and then you can also provide the context in the prompts, as well as we have some notebooks available too, which show how to tune the models for better performance on text generation for your specific task. So another question that we got is, how do you manage access for different brands, for example, or if you're an agency for different customers? And so we recommend using this within your IAM environments, and then you can use identity-aware proxy and Firebase authentication to give access to specific users or groups, or integrate with a third-party system. Another question that we get a lot is, what about my copyrights? And so Google offers indemnification for some of the generative AI products per our terms of service. And then the last question we get is, how do I get started quickly? How do I train and upskill my teams on this specifically? And so in addition to the generative AI trainings that we offer, we have specific notebooks in the GitHub repository that go through the key concepts, as well as the commonly asked questions that I was mentioning earlier. So for example, how to do data Q&A, how to tune a foundation model for brand voice. They're available there as well. So you may want to have a partner that can help implement the solution, customize it, or extend it. And for this, we recommend our Google Cloud Consulting offerings and our implementation partners. So Google Cloud Consulting has created offerings which go hand in hand specifically with these use cases. And we have partners with great expertise, both within Google Cloud and in the marketing space. There's also many great out-of-the-box offerings indicated at the top with Full Story, Growth Loop, Jasper, LiveRamp, Typeface, Lytics, and ZeoTap. And they're actually not mutually exclusive. So we've seen customers adopt both, as well as we internally have adopted a combination. And so that way, you can also get the best of both worlds through that approach. So with that, I will hand over to Caroline and Jess, who will walk through Mars's generative AI for marketing journey. Thank you.
So I hope you all found that useful. But now what we're going to do is bring up Jess from Mars so that we can actually start to have a fireside chat and ask questions. And we will also have Q&A at the end of the session. Jess, would you like to join me on stage?
We can stand.
Yeah, we're gonna
stand?
lean. We're gonna stand lean. Yeah. So for those of you who are going to be working at conferences, always remember to have chairs for us vertically challenged people, but also for women so that if they are wearing skirts, they don't always have to wear pants. Thank you. This was your PSA for DEI.
Do you mind if I ask the audience a question before we get started?
Please.
Awesome.
The floor is yours.
So guys, I don't know if anybody told you about the secret today, but you are in on an exclusive club. I don't know if anybody else had searched, but there's only 4 breakouts for marketing. So if you're here today, get your pen and pencils ready, because this is information that's not broadly distributed across a lot of the conversations that are happening real time. Just wanted to ask you a question. How many of you are actually sitting within media, brand, and content? I know you asked about advertising, but really sitting within the marketing space. Could I see a raise of hands? Great, wow. More than I may have thought. I know there's a lot of interest and intrigue in this area, so just interested in how many comrades you might have here. And please, if any of you are interested in the further journey at Mars, feel free to come up and introduce yourself after the session. We're really glad to be here with you today.
Thank you so much, Jess. So officially, welcome to the Google Cloud family.
Thank you.
I understand that we've agreed to a strategic partnership. So from an engineering perspective, we absolutely value that. Can you tell us a little bit more about why you decided to choose Google to help you do this?
Sure. So to get us started today, I'd like to take you guys on a way back journey that started somewhere in the last couple of quarters of 2022. As you all know, that was a really important time from whenever ChatGPT really hit the airwaves and everybody had this surge of excitement around what's happening in that space. We also had a baton passing moment in the history of Mars where our president and CEO had stood down and a new president and CEO had stood up. His name is Paul Weyrauch and was joining us from leading the Pet Care Global team in Mars. Also in Mars, a little bit of information. We have 3 segments. I sit squarely within Mars Snacking, previously known as Mars Wrigley, but we're increasing that portfolio to also include healthy snacks. We have a pet care segment, which also has just as many elements and portfolios as you could ever imagine if you think about the life cycle of your pet. And we have a food division. When Paul joined with the CEO chair, he started to ask some of our most senior and executive leaders, hey, where are you guys at with this Gen AI stuff that's coming in? And so as a leadership team, we assembled and we brought in what we call a one demand focus. And what that means within Mars is we brought in marketing, sales, media, first party data, analytics, some cross-functional partners to really identify where we wanted to go on this journey, and more importantly, to hone in on the focus of how we wanted to get started. As you guys all know, Gen AI is exploding in every single area and facet of business, and that can also provide a crippling effect. So if you move too fast or put too many pilots out in once, you might actually cripple yourself from making the right progress that you need within the organization because a couple pilots don't go well, you're bringing your resources and stringing them along too quickly. So what we wanted to do was have that focus and strategic intent from the beginning as a one-demand team to make sure that the investments that we were putting together were both very wise, but that they were also going to travel in excitement and help to rally the teams within our organization. So after that design thinking session, we had identified 32 use cases that we're really excited about.
Wow, 32.
32.
Just from one design thinking session. That's amazing.
And we started clustering those in themes. And I was actually sharing with Caroline, I was like, hey, can you flip back to slide 11? Because surprisingly enough, where we had started as to where we felt we could make the most progress early on was actually in analytics, media performance, content creation, and asset reusability. Very similar to what she had shared with you a little bit earlier on in the presentation. And so, with that, I actually sat squarely within the content creation and asset reusability lifecycle. My partner, who unfortunately couldn't be here today with us, he leads the technical area of the organization within what we call digital technologies, or the IT area. And we've been working to redraft how we work internally and transform our organization to bring in more modernized skills, and also create what we're calling a dynamic content ecosystem. And that ecosystem includes things like digital asset management, dynamic creative optimization, marketing resource management tools, but most importantly, identifying areas in the business where we have huge gaps and that we really want to reduce those non-working costs, build new muscle of reutilizing assets that we already have, whether that's across channels, whether that's across departments, but also providing the ability to bring down those non-working costs so that we can remove mundane tasks, take cost and waste out of the business, work more effectively, etc.
That's really, really great. How long did it take you to do that design session? Would you say 2 months?
No,
less?
no. The design session was actually quite quick.
Wow.
So we put something together in less than a month. But keeping the momentum after that session is what's also really important. So again, if we had gone after all 32 use cases at once, I guarantee you we wouldn't have made the progress that we've already made with the Google team today, because we would have been pulled in too many directions. Even with the amount of resources that Mars has, it wouldn't have gone well.
And you highlighted earlier that it was a top-down, but it seemed like you also built the teams around it. It wasn't just top-down, you must do it. It was really clear in roles, responsibilities, and you had all these different personas engaged even in the design session, it sounds like.
Yes, that's also a key learning that I think we found is as you're preparing your organization for a change like this, you can do a lot by top-down, but you also have to start rallying the troops from the bottom up and make sure that the organization is really broadly ready for the change and to accept that. It's a key learning because without it, you might be able to build the plane, but if you can't keep the plane in the air, it's going to crash. So it's one of the key conversations that we've been having now that we're moving past our MVP and we're moving into what will be a longer-term engagement and continuing to build that capability. What is the team and what does that dynamic look like? What do the partnerships look like to sustain that adequately and continue to roadmap that adequately so that it continues to be that viable product offering?
So what kind of results? I know it's at the MVP, so you don't have anything you can share now, but what sort of results are you expecting that you'll be able to see at the end of this MVP?
Sure, so what I would love to happen is straight out of the box, we are having a marketeer or a content creator write in a prompt and it spits out an image that I can put on an owned or paid property. The reality is we're not quite there. The models continue to evolve, and with the new capabilities that are being brought into the ethos, I don't know who else might have been excited about Google Vids today, key point for me. We know that we're going to continue to both gain momentum as we're continuing to tune any of the different models that we have in place, but we'll also continue to gain those additional capabilities within the organization. As I know, I'm going to have marketeers brain and content folks that are knocking down the door and asking, hey, how can we get in on the latest technology, and how can we be creating some of these things internally versus waiting 6 months and having to brief in our agency partners to do this for us.